On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, there's a new game in town. The province. The West Coast League is moving in with the Edmonton Riverhawks. Welcome to episode 106 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It was back on episode 93 when we tried to get to the bottom of the situation around Remax Field in Edmonton. We had both Prospects owner Pat Cassidy and Baseball Edmonton Inc. managing director Dr. Randy Gregg after the latter signed a 10-year lease with the city. It left the Prospects homeless, but not for long, as they released plans to move to Spruce Grove for 2022. But there was a cloud of uncertainty around what Gregg's group had in mind. Then came Tuesday with the announcement that the West Coast League was coming to the province for the first time with the new Edmonton Riverhawks. We thought we'd do things a little differently on the podcast this week and do a deep dive on what this all means for the capital region and more with our own Ian Wilson. Welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for welcoming me.
Hey, it has been kind of like drinking out of a fire hose lately for us, hasn't it? There's been a boatload of news, and probably, I'll say the bow on top of everything lately is, we go back couple months ago, 3 months ago, where we had this question lingering. The lease was signed with Edmonton and this new group. Nobody knew what was going on. We finally have a little bit of a game plan now going forward with what's going to be happening at Remax.
Yeah, we've got some answers now with the Remax Field situation and some resolution. Edmonton Riverhawks announcing they're joining or they'll be playing out of that ballpark. They're the 15th team and latest expansion team in the West Coast League, which is another summer collegiate wood bat league, and in many ways very similar to the Western Canadian Baseball League. So a little bit of buzz and excitement there, and from the point of view of Remax Field, kind of nice to at least know what the deal is and what's happening there and what the plan is moving forward, because that group led by Dr. Randy Gregg has a 10-year lease with the city for Remax Field.
And I know that there's been a lot of back and forth, and he said, she said over it, but it feels to me like there's a real appetite out there for there to be kind of water under the bridge, so to speak, and to just kind of let this thing go, because whether or not we like it or not, there is obviously a souring of the relationship between the city of Edmonton City Council, and the Prospects Group. And whether we like it or not, that's the way it ended, where the lease was given to the Gregg Group, and the Prospects decided, okay, well, we got to go with Plan B, which happens to be Spruce Grove. We're going to build our own facility out there, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be kind of nice for everybody to be able to kind of turn the page in a sense and be able to start with a fresh slate.
Yeah, I think that's one of the positives, is that hopefully all the groups from the Riverhawks to WCL to WCBL and Edmonton Prospects can just look to the future and focus on what they're going to bring to the table now, and what their plans now are now. Edmonton Riverhawks have talked about some upgrades of the ballpark, which would be a nice thing to see. So, improvement of the infield and new scoreboard, and working on the lighting there. So that would be a positive development, keeping that baseball diamond relevant. Obviously we want to see that continue to exist, and not only exist, but have baseball there. So that'd be a good thing to do. And for, if you're the Prospects, looking ahead to Spruce Grove and a new stadium, that's a pretty nice plan B, right? To be able to look at that and build something new and is extremely exciting, and hopefully great for the community of Spruce Grove and for the league, just to see that come to fruition. We've seen, obviously, Okotoks has had great success moving out of a bigger center and into a neighboring community, and just hopefully that's the model that they're looking at, and hopefully that works for the Prospects as well.
Well, and I think from our standpoint, as we look at it from the wider scope, when we make no bones about this, and we actually in the last couple of weeks here announced that we had entered a partnership with the Western Canadian Baseball League, and it was one of those situations where I know a lot of people might be going, "Oh, you have a vested interest." Well, we actually have a vested interest in the success of baseball, period, in this province, and if there's another player coming to the table, such as the West Coast League, hey, we're all for it because that just means the growth of the game across the board. And so all of a sudden now, in my sights anyways, is we're looking at possibly Edmonton succeeding with the West Coast League and Spruce Grove, surrounding area, succeeding with the Western Canadian Baseball League. And to me, and maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on this, Ian, is that's win-win for baseball in this province.
Well, that's the hope. That is, I think, that's the optimistic view, is that both can not only just coexist, but that both entities can thrive in each other's backyards. So I think the West Coast League has got its work cut out for it. To be quite honest, they've presented themselves as a team that is going to show off maybe some players that are more likely to be future MLBers, which certainly they're, at the last draft, I believe they had 90 players from that league who were drafted into the MLB, so that may be the case. But there's all kinds of logistical questions around the Riverhawks and making that work. They are, I believe it's a 9 or 9.5 hour drive to their nearest competitor. They have already talked about covering some of the travel costs for opposing teams. The entry fee into that league, I believe, is anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 US just to get into the league. So we're talking a lot of expenses right off the bat, so to speak, and and also most of the league is in the U.S. So even if you take away the fact that the U.S. border is currently closed and the whole COVID situation, the pandemic, and the uncertainty that brings for any league, if you take that away, there's still a lot of logistical situations that have been common to Edmonton throughout its history, whether it was with the Trappers or the Cracker Cats or the Capitals, just in terms of travel and being such a far outpost in whatever league they're in. So they're going to have some work to do to get to a good place. So we'll see.
You mentioned the drive. I also point to back in the 2001 through 2005 era, which is known as the death of affiliated baseball in Alberta, where you saw the Medicine Hat Blue Jays leave, the Edmonton Trappers leave, and the Calgary Cannons all leave in the stretch of 2 or 3 years. The biggest issue facing all three of those organizations, according to many that I've spoken to over the years, was the Canadian dollar. The value of the Canadian dollar went down versus its American counterpart at that time. And so a lot of those Canadian franchises were paying for things like supplies in American funds, and that's an automatic disadvantage. And so that's going to be one of the challenges I can foresee if the Canadian dollar does go ahead and tank at some point in the next few years here. And it'd be a challenge not just for the Edmonton franchise, but there's also the WCL has announced a few new franchises over the last few weeks. I know Kamloops is another one. There's going to be some challenges that lie ahead for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. I mean, it's, pardon the pun, it's a hawkish move, I think, too, because you've got basically the West Coast League has been a neighboring league of the WCBL since 2005, and they've kind of been neighbors and been alongside each other and kind of stayed out of each other's turf for some time. So this is an aggressive move, and the WCBL has called it a hostile move, which it may or may not be, but it's certainly, they're definitely getting right into the grill of that league, and and I think too, a lot of people, you mentioned the minor league teams, in many ways, baseball fans in Alberta have kind of been chasing the ghost of those teams for so long now, where you talk about what is happening, whether it's the CCBC or the WCBL or other forms of baseball, senior men's baseball. And then people just, I wish we had the Cannons back or the Trappers back. And, that's a nice sentiment, I guess, but they're not coming back.
Yeah.
That ship has sailed. It was fun. It was great that it lasted. We were very fortunate to have that caliber of baseball here. But even the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen the landscape of minor league baseball shift in major ways. So not only where it's harder to bring AAA baseball back, but even these single A teams they're just going the way of the dodo. So that is not realistic to expect that to come back. And if anything, you might see more products like the summer collegiate model, flourish in other parts of North America. So just stop dreaming about that. Enjoy that it happened. And then after that, you want to ask yourself what kind of baseball product do you want to see? And I honestly think 100% it's more realistic to expect Calgary or Edmonton, for that matter, to get a Major League Baseball team than it is for the return of AAA baseball here. That may sound ludicrous, but that's how I feel about it. I just don't think you're going to get that back. And then you look at, so what your options are now in Edmonton, and it comes down to WCL or, WCBL in the area as well. And we'll see what fans decide is kind of the product that they want to see and what they gravitate towards.
You can follow Ian on all the social media platforms at Buzzkill Wilson. I'm just kidding. But I mean, you're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. And all you need to do is, again, look at what Major League Baseball has made decisions on, even pre-COVID, is a reduction in the number of teams. And especially the further north you go, because now all of a sudden we are a significant drive away from affiliated ball, period, because Helena, Great Falls, the Idaho Falls, the teams that existed even with the Trappers and Cannons have slowly disappeared and headed further south towards, I think Colorado Springs was one of the communities that one of the Montana teams went to. And so that'll be an interesting dynamic come someday down the line, is whether the West Coast League expands into, say, a Montana, because now they don't have an affiliated team to rally behind. So there are those aspects to it. And I agree with you as well, is that the Alberta baseball fan is going to have to, and I think has for the most part, especially in the communities where it's established with the Western Canadian Baseball League, is dove head first, whether it's Okotoks, whether it's Medicine Hat, whether it's Lethbridge. Fort McMurray has certainly seen a groundswell in activity around baseball. Of course, the Edmonton area, whether it's Spruce Grove or St. Albert or Sherwood Park, that whole area has been baseball crazy forever. And so the more the merrier in that front. But at the same time, you do have that establishment known as the WCBL. And there's so many different things that I think are so uniquely Canadian about them. And you and I were talking yesterday about this very notion, about this organization that continues to build, continues to expand. You've got Sylvan Lake coming on. You've got expansions going on across each of the different facilities. I mean, there's some investment happening here.
Yeah, and I don't think, as much as some may view the Riverhawks and the WCL as a threat to the WCBL, and it may be, but I also don't think the WCBL is going away anytime soon. I don't think there's a long-term threat to what the WCBL is doing and has been able to do. Okotoks is an obvious example of a team that was chased by independent ball out of Calgary, and what did they do? They went to Okotoks and they built something really quite magnificent, and perhaps the best stadium in Western Canada, right? So based on that, like I said, we were talking about Spruce Grove earlier. That's kind of a model, right? Have this nice stadium, and the fact that they're building stadiums says a lot to me. The fact that you can look at Sylvan Lake, new stadium going up there. You can look at Spruce Grove, new stadium going up there. Spitz Stadium, not so long ago, had significant renovations done. Siemens Stadium, this last summer, just had significant renovations done and expansion. So the fact that it's not just come watch these ball teams play. And it's bricks and mortar, and it's these things that are an advantage to people in the area. That speaks very highly to me, that development and construction is going on.
And beyond that, is it's not just the Okotoks dogs have Dogs Academy is sort of I'll call it a feeder academy, but you have Vauxhall down by Lethbridge that could help out both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat and Brooks for that matter. You're starting to see these different academies start to pop up and start to kind of feed off of that model, and I think that's going to be good news, not just for the development of Canadian baseball players, but also the development of the Western Canadian baseball game. And I think that that's going to be one of maybe the challenges that maybe the WCL does face when it does enter Edmonton, is that it doesn't have some of those natural rivalries that play into when you have Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, or you have Okotoks and it was Edmonton, but Spruce Grove and Sylvan Lake or Fort McMurray gets involved. I mean, there's little rivalries that are starting to beam up, and as we mentioned earlier, WCL and Edmonton, all of a sudden the closest rival is going to be 9 hours away.
You kind of hit the nail on the head with the rivalry aspect. It doesn't matter what is being played. You could play table tennis or checkers between someone from Medicine Hat and someone from Lethbridge, and they're not going to like each other, right? Like that is a rivalry that is tried and true and a natural rivalry. So, are we going to see with the Edmonton River Hawks, are they going to be rivals of the Bend Elks? I don't know. I'm not, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I think there's just so many question marks and so many unknowns that you're really going to need to wait to see the constitution of the roster, the coaching staff, and things like that before you have an idea of what you're going to get out of this team, and whether or not they're going to be able to develop these compelling rivalries. And of course, part of the game too. Even if you've got a situation where the new Summer Collegiate League in the WCL does have a higher caliber of player, which remains to be seen because we've seen crossover between the two as well. Even if it does, are you going to connect with that? And that's where the academies come in, is if you're in Okotoks and a kid who's come up through the academy, there's that local connection that you have to that player, and you see that time and time again, whether it's PBA or Vauxhall with playing on the Medicine Hat Mavericks and Lethbridge Bulls, or Dogs Academy going to the summer collegiate team. So those are benefits that league has that will be interesting to see how if we can see that in this new league. So I'll be very curious. Obviously, there's going to be intrigue, and I definitely want to go see what the Riverhawks have to offer. But there is a lot of skepticism and unknown at this point. So that is one of those areas that you wonder about. And then on top of that, too, I mean, the casual fan, do they even really care about who's playing? Who's playing? I mean that for almost any league. A lot of what you're providing isn't just, I'm here to see, Matt Lloyd play, or Landon Barassa pitch. You might just be there because the ballpark's nice. It's, you want a cold beer, you want some spits, what have you. You just want the setting. So that's the other part of the equation that the Riverhawks will be looking to provide and enhance is a good fan experience. So that is as important, if not more important, than who is taking the field, is just seeing what they provide in terms of entertainment value.
And that is certainly something that's on their radar. They've already alluded to some of the upgrades that that they plan on for Remax Field, which means that that at least they're going to be investing in that field, and they're not just going to leave it to the dust mites, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. Yeah, and I think one of the other aspects that we should talk about too is one of the major differences with the WCBL is senior players, graduating seniors, are eligible to play in the WCBL. They are not, to my knowledge, eligible to play in the West Coast League. So what does that mean? That to me, I mean, I've watched a lot of WCBL over the last couple of years. I've shot a lot of photos at the games. I like to haul my camera down there,
Mm-hmm.
and you do tend to notice some of the much better players in that league. Not always. You get some great players of who are freshmen and juniors, but the senior players, the graduating ones, there is something special about watching them take the field, knowing that this is it. This is my last summer potentially. So there's two things. One, this is my last. I'm counting down the at bats, counting down the innings, counting down the pitches to my last competitive action. And then the other element is maybe someone will see me. Maybe a scout will see me. Maybe I can tear this league up for one glorious summer. And, we saw that with Riley McDonald and Brooks setting the home run record and landing a pro contract in Quebec. So, that's kind of one of the other dream elements of seniors and watching them play. And, also throwing the pitch counts out the windows for some of those senior pitchers. Right? They're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to pitch 10 innings today. You can't drag me off this field. I don't care if my arm never works again. Obviously I'm going to extreme. We don't want anyone to get injured or things like that. But there is that element to it that is compelling, I will say, at the very least. So, again, I'm very curious to see the composition of these of the new team and the visiting teams as well, what they kind of look like.
And I think there's one other aspect to it, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and it comes down to fan experience. And I think that this is going to be something that's obviously my forte as being, the game day host for the Stampeders and Hitmen, but I've thought a lot about it, especially in a post-COVID world, is how do you attract fans back into the stands? And beyond that is when you have, I'll call it a junior level, but when you have the professional level, it's easy to kind of bank off of that marketing prowess of the professional athletes, whereas you don't necessarily have that with the junior ranks because there's so much turnover. Even in junior hockey, you've got a turnover every 3 years or so. In college baseball, it's the same kind of thing. You can't really key off of, hey, this is going to be the next Mike Trout. You're not going to have that. And so how do you bring those fans back in? And that's going to be the challenge, not just for the West Coast League, but for the Western Canadian Baseball League as well. How do you attract not just the fans to come out, but also to convince them that, hey, your dollars and cents that are spent on entertainment, and I use that term broadly because I think sports is going to be in the same realm as, say, going out to the movies with the family, is the same as going to be going out to mini golf or whatever the case may be. How are you going to attract them so that they feel like they got their money's worth at the end of each game? And so how do you do that is going to be a multi-million-dollar question for not just these two baseball leagues, but for every sport heading into 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, and you raise a good point. I mean, the WCL and the WCBL are not just in direct competition with each other in this case. You're in competition with Netflix and, going to a patio at a pub on a certain night and all these other options that people have. And certainly, I'm not sure what the stats are or anything like that, but it feels like a lot of times people are just happy to veg out on their couch and not leave their house. So how are you going to coax people out and get them down to your event, whether it's baseball or anything else?
So we have some resolution when it comes to Remax Field, but the last question I have for you, Ian, is what are your final thoughts on what has transpired over the last couple of months here when it comes to Edmonton, when it comes to the Western Canadian Baseball League, because they've obviously made a few announcements in the last little while as well, and then this week's news around the West Coast League?
Well, I'm disappointed that there was some sour vibes there for quite a while. Between both the incoming team and the outgoing prospects in the city, and you just never really want to see things develop and unfold that way. So that's that's just unfortunate that that's how that's been. Again, my long-term hope is that whatever moves kind of come to this province, and including this latest development, is that it'll be a net positive for baseball, not only in the Edmonton area, but also in all of Alberta. So I'm hopeful that is the case. There is, with some competing league in Alberta, this is a signal to the WCBL as well to, hey, we have some competition here. We need to put our best foot forward, if we weren't already, and make sure we're providing the best teams, the best coaching, the best experience available. So I hope it's something that elevates their game as much as they can. And I guess the flip side of that, the fear is that, as I mentioned earlier, that these leagues kind of cannibalize each other. We see another, Vipers, Cracker Cats. Hey, we're here for 5-6 years. We've hurt your team, and now we're gone.
Yeah.
So I really hope that's not what we're seeing, and I hope it's just something that gets more eyeballs on baseball and more people attracted to the game and into the game, and just a net benefit for the sport. And that's why, if I've sounded a little bit negative or critical, I think it's just because there are so many unknowns and so many question marks. And it's, we've seen other leagues come in, whether it was the Canadian Baseball League or the Golden League and the Northern League. And yes, you have a press conference and people say really nice things and exciting things, and that's awesome. But now you got to prove it. Now we got to see it. We got to see it on the field. And, hopefully that's the case, and hopefully that's not to the detriment of other teams that have worked really hard to keep the sport alive in that area and grow it. And, we should, I think people too should give some thanks for what the prospects have achieved in just keeping baseball at that level relevant in that market, whether you like it or don't like it. It's been an opportunity to go to Remax Field and watch games that you likewise or otherwise wouldn't have. So I think they are to be commended for keeping that going for as long as they have.
Couldn't agree more, especially when you consider how many lengthy playoff runs they went on and some of the rivalries they built over the years, whether it be with Swift Current in finals or whether it be with Okotoks in division semifinals. It always seemed to be a summer to remember at Remax Field. And I kind of want to echo a point that you made as well there, and not sound too kumbaya-ish, but it was I'm glad that we didn't see a total airing of the dirty laundry that seemed to be going on behind the scenes, although what it seemed to do, unfortunately, was kind of stoke a few more of those rumors and that kind of thing that popped up about the relationship that had soured between the city and the prospects group, or whatever happened behind closed doors. Nobody knows outside of those two groups. And to me, I think it was good that it didn't get aired in the public, because you don't need that. And like I said, I think that this is a chance for everybody to kind of walk away with a fresh slate and maybe do something a little different, and hopefully they can put all the past behind them and move on to bigger and better things. So on that note, we're going to put an end to our chat here with Ian. Thanks so much for joining us here on the program, as always.
Thanks again for having me, Joe, and enjoy the fall ball now, I guess.
Yes, indeed. Although the way we've been going, we'll have some more news to dissect on next week's episode. Thanks to Ian for stopping by, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. We'd love to know what you think about this week's news. Drop us a note on any of our social media platforms and let us know if you're excited to see a new brand of baseball in Edmonton, or if you'll be following the prospects to Spruce Grove. And before we go, just wanted to tip our caps to the Calgary Diamondbacks of the Foothills Major Baseball Association, the 2020 champions after knocking off the Calgary White Sox. Ian was at that final game and shared some pictures and video on our social media, so make sure to check those out as well. Until next time, thanks for all of your support, no matter the platform, of Alberta Dugout Stories.